Hello, hello, your Momentum Now community. Excited to give a little sneak peek because I have been in the lab, which is also known as my office today, developing what is going to be delivered tonight in the Facebook results course for session 3. So I wanted to give a little sneak peek of what I'm talking about and talk about a question that I get a ton when it comes to marketing strategy because, and I see this all the time on Facebook ads, I see it all the time when marketing experts are talking about it. When you're thinking about your Facebook assets, I find a lot of times people are starting to get turned off by what's called content strategy, which is really the idea, and I can't tell you enough how many people have told me, I wish I didn't have to have a funnel, or I wish that I didn't have to do all this extra work to be able to meet people, or aren't there strategies and ways where I don't have to do all this stuff up front to necessarily make things happen. So that's something I'm actually addressing tonight in the course, but I want to talk about it specifically because they actually are two separate and distinct strategies. And if you have any questions before I go live, I'm only going to be here for a few minutes tonight before I jump on the course, ask them because obviously I'm on the Facebook here and I want to answer them. So let's talk about the fundamentals of a content strategy, which this is the most traditional form of digital marketing there is. It feeds into funnels, it feeds into your traditional social media strategy, it feeds into all that stuff because what it's really about is developing content that's going to attract people and bring them in. So let's talk about the pros and cons of that. So for a content strategy, what's important is content gives you authority, is really what's so good about content. Now, some people are really able to do that well in relationships. Some of you are master networkers, or some of you are people that really have an easy time of developing relationship and establishing authority through connection. And if you can do that, that's fine. But if you're not great at that, or you're new into business, or you're someone that you're trying to figure out your message or work on things or practice things, content is actually the easiest way to get it done. And it gives you this type of embedded authority, or it gives you this type of attraction figure that most people don't have. Now, although it's true that a lot of people now are consistently creating content and things like Facebook Live and tools have made it a lot easier, you're still in the really small percentage if you're actually consistently creating new stuff for your audience to see. There are plenty of people that don't. There are so many abandoned business pages, groups, all those things that are waiting for content to be shared and waiting for people to step in to answer questions and be there for people. So content just makes it easier to attract new people, and you can use it in so many different ways. The other thing specifically when it comes to Facebook, and this is true on other platforms as well, but with the changes of the Facebook algorithm and all that stuff, people can see your content days or weeks after it's been shared. In fact, a lot of times this happens to me where I'll have something, a photo or a video that I posted a month ago or something like that all of a sudden, because it got enough comments or because something in the algorithm made it pop up, I'll get all sorts of new interaction or all sorts of new content or comments and shares and those types of things that happen like well after it's been developed or shared. So content does work for you when you're not doing work, is really what's great about the content side of things. And of course, it's got to be good content or representative of what you are and what you're doing. And I'll talk about good content versus bad content on a future session of this. But obviously, any opportunity for you to be discovered that isn't you going out and directly leading people by the hand back to what you do, it's really important. So content does the work when you're not. The other thing specifically when it comes to Facebook is that you're notified regularly of interaction on your content. And you can be notified regularly of interactions. So like when you comment or when you share or when you give tips on somebody else's content as well, you can be set to get notified of all those things, which means anytime you get a notification that someone liked something, that someone commented on something, that someone does something, that gives you an opportunity for interaction. In these days, interaction or connection, which is the second strategy we're going to talk about, is super critical because the blast strategy of just put out tons of content, tons of people will show up and see things, and you're lucky because you have it and people show up, that just doesn't work anymore. Actually, it never really worked that well. It worked when the platforms were brand new and there was a huge barrier to entry with cost and expense. But now that we're doing it all on our cell phones, it's pretty easy for people to get content. So at this point, connection should be merged with that strategy. But it's good to have content. There are some people that do this without content, which I'll talk about in a second, but it's good because it gives you these touch points. Like anybody who likes or shares this, it gives me a touch point for a conversation to know this was something you were interested in or something you might be curious about. So you get notified of those things, and it's really important. The next thing is you become more recognizable and attractive to partners and potential customers. Great example for me, I had never met Justin Livingston in my life. He is a huge person in the speaking space and the digital marketing space. I'm sure some of you watching this either live or on the replay have heard that name, and if you haven't, he's just kind of a big deal in the speaker space. I had never met Justin before in my life, despite my experience of being in a variety of different events and things like that. It was my content that got his attention. He happened to see when I was sending out either a blog post or a video or multiple things that I had sent out, because he was targeted in some Facebook ads and in some share campaigns that I had. And so just because of that, I had an in with him. I was more recognizable. He's like, I recognize you from Facebook. You're really putting it out there, which that gives you authority. Again, so content really equals authority, which is what the biggest thing is. So for those of you who don't have a huge reputation, or you aren't super slick on the sales side, or you're not really sure what to say, content gives you authority, and it gives you that practice ground at the same time to practice what you're saying, what you're teaching, how you're doing it. So it just makes you more recognizable to everyone when they go, hey, I know Ken, he does Facebook Live all the time, or I know whoever, they do Facebook Live all the time. For example, a lot of people that I follow on my personal page, I just see them all the time because I know they're out there creating content all the time. And then underneath, this is the big con, and I put it in red. There are more cons than this, but it can all be simplified down to one thing. It's a lot of work, and most of all, it's consistent work. It's stuff you have to do all the time. Like and that schedule is really up to you, how often you do it, how often you try to create those types of things. You know, some people will recommend every day, depending on how intense you want to be with it. That's all well and good. You can do that, but really you're the one that sets the schedule, and you've got to be consistent about it. So if you say you're going to do videos every Monday, you got to do videos every Monday, barring crazy nor'easter storms like what we had here where I don't have power for a week. So that disrupted my schedule a little bit. But really, it's understanding there is a lot of work that goes into this. There's creativity, there's brainstorming, there's ways to think about what you're going to talk about and how you're going to develop it. The easiest way to do it, as I said, is just pick up Facebook Live and start using it. But there are really huge benefits to content, and this is why so many people develop funnels that are so dependent on the idea of content marketing. It's why product launch formula is a thing. It's why blogging is a thing. It's why Facebook Live is a thing, because content does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So let's say you're a person, and again, this is where I laugh because I see ads about this all the time. I know salespeople that are really good at conversation or really good at selling, that they don't care about the content at all. They're just looking for people to talk to. They're looking for a connection strategy. So is it possible for you to make sales, find leads, develop and cultivate relationships, and make money without content? The answer is yes. It is harder. It is a longer hill to climb. It takes more time, but it is certainly doable. And I know plenty of people, particularly people that are just masterful at LinkedIn, are great at doing a connection strategy. But let's talk about the pros of that. So obviously, your big thing with connection strategy means you've got to do all the work. You've got to have the conversations. You've got to find out what people want. Like, content is a way of automating that phase of the getting to know you, of figuring out what people know, what people like, what people care about. So if you're not doing that, it just boils it down to the one-on-one. Now, one-on-one is not bad, because if you're responding to somebody and you're sending out messages and you're getting in front of them, you can ask questions, you can answer their questions, you can be a resource for them. And I know people that consistently can take a LinkedIn message or a Facebook message, and instead of going, whoops, for that $50 thing, sorry, my calendar alerts are going off for the Facebook course, but if you can consistently have that conversation and even get them to a point where you're on the phone, geez, why do I have so many alerts? That you can consistently get them going at this point, you can sell a lot bigger than your typical like $20 thing to $50 thing to $100 thing. You just got to put in the time investment. That time may be worth it for you. It may be worth it to just go and find people and source people and make connections with people who you already know are interested in a thing, or people who may be good connections for you, especially on LinkedIn. Again, this is a great way to do it. And you can take them right into your higher end sales. I know people that is how they run their coaching business, is just by connecting with people all day, asking questions, getting into the sales mode right right away, and they don't create content at all, or they create very little content, or they rely on content that they created a long time ago, or they hire that out. Like some people just don't do it at all. I know plenty of people that don't do content at all. Then from there, less work on the front end, more work on the back end. So on the front end, with a connection strategy, you don't have to do all this development. You don't have to do all this testing. You don't have to figure out what people like and don't like. You typically don't have to do as much research. Your research is going out and talking to people. So that isn't the same as a content campaign where before anyone starts creating content, I highly recommend they do research. I hate the crap that a lot of people will feed when they say you don't have to do the research or just start and figure it out. Like a lot of times doing that research saves you so much time, so much headache, helps you get an idea for what people already like, so you're not making stuff up and you're not having to figure it out on the back end. So yeah, there's less work that goes into the research side, because I would recommend for anybody starting their business or repurposing their business or focusing on a new product, there's a lot of research to do. There's some development to do. Developing and getting that content strategy consistent, there's a lot of work on the front end that you have to do. And then you have to continue to hustle to get it right and to fix things and to get things in alignment when it's not right. But obviously all the work comes on the back end in a connection strategy. It just means you're asking questions, you're having conversation, you're responding, you're finding out what people like directly. As I said, and I kind of covered this already, it gets you to bigger connections faster. There's no funnel there. Like the funnel is your conversation. So you're talking to somebody, you're figuring out what they're a fit for in your model, and you're moving them to the right place. So is it possible? Sure. For a lot of you, and this is why I recommend to a lot of you who are looking to make sales right away or you need money right away, a connection strategy is what you need to do. Content is going to be too slow for some of you that need money right now. You just got to focus on your connection. You got to focus on who you're talking to, how you're talking to them, what you're putting in front of them. But here's the big con of connection strategy, and this is the thing. It's possible to alienate or upset people when done poorly. This is why things like chatbots and things like setting up automated process or things like having conversations when you're not so great at sales, they can actually hurt you a lot more than they help you. Because if you're reaching out in a way that aggravates people or annoys people or they don't like, or they're thinking like, hey, I didn't request that type of thing, rather than, starting where a conversation would naturally start, then it can really alienate people and you can lose them forever. Like if they connect with you and they just don't like you after connecting with you, normally there's no second chance. If they opt into your list and then they opt out of your list, that typically doesn't mean you can never get them back. It typically doesn't mean that you can't go through a process where you bring them back in or you retarget them or you do those types of things to get them to come back to your list. But in a connection strategy, you screw that up, you're probably screwed up for good. There's not much that you can do there to fix it if someone is talking to you and they go, yeah, I don't like you. And you know what? That's going to happen in your life, in your business, in the world. Things don't always work out perfectly. I understand how that works, but I want to be real honest when I say, is it totally possible to do that? Yes. Are there tons of businesses that do that strategy where they're just doing straight up outreach or straight up cold emails or cold messages that are starting conversations and getting people interested? That answer is yes. And there are plenty of people that are doing 6 or 7 figures just doing that. I know salespeople that are just doing that, or they're doing affiliate marketing just doing that. And so again, a lot of what we talk about, not only in the Facebook results course, but just in general, is stuff that is designed to shortcut these things a little bit to make it faster and easier to create your content or develop your funnel or to get things going. But I thought that this was key as I really wanted to answer that question of, do you have to have all the content to get things done? And the answer is not necessarily. Does it help you? Sure. Does it have other benefits that can move you further faster? Absolutely it does. But do you have to have it? No. You could start sending messages and start connecting with people right now. So if that's where you are, that's where you are. And this is a lot of what we talk about in Facebook results. So if you're curious about that course or you want to know more about it, just shoot me a message and I'm happy to explain and let people know, because we still got a couple weeks left of live lessons and we'll have some more coaching and campaign reviews. So I know a lot of you are curious about this Facebook stuff with all the changes. And so I'll be talking about it a lot here in Your Momentum Now. I'm jumping on the Facebook results course. I will see all of you who are in that course there, or you're watching this after the course has happened. So we'll see you later.